Welcome back. Now, President Buhari has been in office for slightly over 100 days, and of course, virtually everyone in Nigeria have been giving their assessment of his administration. Now, I sat down with Professor Akinyo Yebode, a professor of international law at the University of Lagos, to discuss the president's performance in office over the past 100 days with a focus on some areas. I began by asking him just how he would generally assess the Buhari's administration within this short time.
Well, my view really is that it's like an airplane that's about to take off. It's still revving the engines and warming up. It's not yet taking off. The last 100 days were preliminaries, so to put it. So it's when he takes off and attains cruising level that we can start assessing the flight. Right now, we are all seated waiting for the takeoff. By that I mean that he's not named his cabinet. He's made a lot of speeches in terms of the game plan for his administration. Precisely, he wants to put a cap on the insurgency problem. He wants to face head-on corruption and then do something about the economy in order to generate employment for the teeming graduates and non-graduate young people who have been trotting the streets. So those are the three things he wants to do. But in the last 3 months, I think he's made heavy weather of his anti-corruption thrust. People say it's a lot of propaganda. Well, so be it. Until he sets up the cabinet, he can't give us really a directional statement in terms of his policies to handle the economy and projections, planning, and what have you. So I'm one of those in the country that are prepared to give him the benefit of the doubt.
You talked about the cabinet, and I know this is an issue you've talked about at a different occasion now, that he's taking too long a time now to set up his cabinet. He's been in office for the past 3 months, and some people are getting frustrated. You even expressed your frustration some time ago that he probably is looking for a saint, and that if that is what he's trying to do, it might be difficult for him.
Yes, you are dead on target. Well, he said Nigerians should bear with him, that he's aware that they call him Baba Go Slow, and it's not that he wants to be so slow, but he wants to be steady. And that at the end of this month, he said he will unfurl those men and women who will assist him. You know, a president is as good as those who surround him. So definitely he must entertain tremendous circumspection as to who gets to be on his cabinet. The men and women that will help him actualize his policy objectives must be carefully screened in terms of their competence, in terms of their savvy, and in terms of even political appeal, because he has so many constituencies to take on board. So I think in another week or two, he will have informed the Nigerians of who he wants to work with. We've waited thus far, 3 months or more. Another 1 week or two will not kill us. So I will be prepared to hear what he has to say. When we see the configuration of men and women that will help him, then we'll be in a better position to assess the pros and cons of his policy, of his government, whether the change mantra is just mantra or it's for real. So I think I will still wait another few weeks before passing judgment.
His last set of appointments generated a lot of uproar in the country. People saying, look, he's turning out to be the president of the North, because the majority of the people he appointed actually come from the North. What's your own take on that?
Well, I've said also that he has to be very careful not to play in the hands of his opponents. Because when you look at the 32 positions he has filled so far, majority of the nominees or the candidates come from his part of the country. So he's being perceived as a northern irredentist, you know, a hegemonist, or a member of a cabal that wants to hold Nigeria by the Adam's apple. And so he has his work cut out for him. He has to assuage the feelings of those who are beginning to be disenchanted, if not, in fact, disillusioned. But you see, Nigeria is a big and complex country. We have about 450 ethnic groups that comprise Nigeria. And then the cleavages, what you call the fault lines, religious, ethnic, and otherwise, they are all clearly visible. And the fuse is so short. A leader has to be aware of the tendency for disaffection and for, in fact, driving the ship of state right to the gorge. But Nigerians are great compromisers. We go to that gorge, we take a look at the gravine, and we pull back and create another great compromise. So the brouhaha, I think, has blown over, and he now knows what he has to do, because he said he wanted to set up what you can call his kitchen cabinet. And it's those that he is aware of, that he's worked with previously. You see, the attitude of somebody like Buhari is better the devil you know than the angel you are yet to meet. So maybe we'll grant him that license to set up his kitchen cabinet. But thereafter, we have to wash with cynical acid any proposals that run against the grain of the popular consciousness. What is going on for him is that he has a pan-Nigerian mandate. He has the support of the different parts of the country, apart from certain areas we denied him the vote. But by and large, I think he will make amends and give everybody a piece of the pie. Otherwise, he will be dismissed as very ethnocentric, and of course, he would not want to be seen as that. He has to create an inclusive government which will give all of us a piece of the action. So I'm sure he knows what to do. Luckily for him, he's been there before, although in another capacity. As an elected president of Nigeria, he has no choice but to have an inclusive cabinet.
One of the challenges some people have said Buhari will definitely confront in his fight against corruption is the legal system. He's actually set up a committee now to advise him, which of course you're aware of. What do you think, in your opinion, what do you think could be his major stumbling block in fighting corruption in this country?
Well, that's a big question to answer, because corruption is both structural as well as managerial. Structural in the sense that the country does not provide the wherewithal for survival or sustenance after public office. So many people want to make hay while the sun is shining, to put something away for when they will no longer be in public office. Nigeria lacks a social security system. We don't have unemployment insurance, old age insurance, all sorts of things that you find in the West in advanced industrialized societies. The lack of a social security system has to be addressed in a structural way. But then the managerial aspect, again, is the consciousness of the people who find themselves in position of power and responsibility. Because of ill preparation and plain avarice, people want to get away with as much as they can. It seems that the most important commandment amongst the Nigerian political class is the 11th commandment: thou shalt not be caught. You can commit infractions of all the 10 commandments, but make sure you are not found out. And when you are found out, there is class solidarity. They are slapped on the wrists or told to go and sin no more. We've not had people burnt at the stake. So I think what we need to do now is to revisit the jurisprudence, Nigeria's criminal jurisprudence. You know, we inherited an adversarial, what is called an accusatorial system from the Brits. That is to say, presumption of innocence, onus of proof on the prosecution, right to counsel of your choice, what you call fair hearing. Maybe it's about time we investigated the French system, which is inquisitorial. You are presumed guilty, you now have the onus to prove your innocence. So these are things that we have to look at afresh. The criminal justice system that we have inherited from the colonial conquerors. We might now have to devise a special system which will take cognizance of the peculiarities of the Nigerian society. Then, of course, the sense of opprobrium that people should show towards those who have fleeced the country. We still find corrupt people sitting on front rows in churches, being rewarded maybe for their corrupt practices with chieftaincy titles. The ostentatious lifestyles of some of these people flaying their wealth, and they can't justify the humongous architectural statements they make on the landscape. They should not be seen as heroes or worshipped by the poor. The poor now have to wash with cynical acid anybody that claims to be a member of the power elite. So the Nigerian society itself should shun and ostracize those who have been caught with their hands in the till. So the corruption is hydra-headed, and that is why it has to be confronted from all sides. Not just the government, the people themselves. We should be arms, in glove with Buhari to ensure that we stop corruption if we don't want corruptions to stop up.
But are you satisfied with what he's doing about it now?
No, this is the era of propaganda. This is, shall we say, the campaign to raise the consciousness, to ante the attitude of the people against corrupt practices. Nothing really substantial has been done because the people who have been prosecuted are from the past. We have anti-corruption institutions, the international, the ICPC, then there's EFCC, and we have the police, we have the Code of Conduct Bureau. Maybe we need to strengthen the anti-corruption agencies. But the critical thing is the criminal jurisprudence that I was talking about. There are countries that you and I know punish official corruption with execution by firing squad. We have other countries too that will try you for corruption. If found guilty, they will put you in prison and throw away the keys. Then, of course, you have to confiscate the proceeds of corrupt practices, and so that there should be a deterrence to the rest of the society that corruption does not pay. So there's a whole necessity for reinventing, reconfiguring, and reconstructing the criminal justice system as far as corruption is concerned. And I think it can be done because, you see, the International Corruption Perception Index puts Nigeria very far down the ladder. So we have to do something to cleanse the audience tables in Nigeria. And if anybody can do it, I think Muhammadu Buhari and Yemi Osinbajo, who before being elected, I'm talking of the vice president, ran an anti-corruption NGO called Integrity. So somebody like that who has nice credentials, antecedents in the struggle against corruption should, as far as possible, ensure that the fight goes on unrelented.
I just have to ask you this very quickly. What do you make of the decision by both the president and the vice now to declare their assets?
Well, it's a ritual. But you know, the past president, the past president did not give a damn about the necessity for disclosing how much he had. In fact, when that president was vice president to the late Yar'Adua, he was dragged screaming to actually declare his asset publicly, to follow the lead of the president. Now we have a new sheriff in town, as I called him, who has declared his assets, and of course the vice president declared his, although they ought to have done it much earlier. They were caught in the nick of time because it was going to be 100 days, and they quickly, publicly told us what they had. And there are still very many critics who say it's not so impressive, that there's a lot more that was not declared. But it's the task of the Code of Conduct Bureau to now set its inspectors and agents to cross-check and verify whether those declarations were genuine, whether there are any gaps, and if there are any gaps, to ask for better and further particulars, as lawyers will say. So they've done their own bit. The rest is on society to now come out. If we have knowledge of any assets that the president or vice president or even Senator Shehu Sani, whoever declares his assets publicly, has failed to disclose, then there's people to blow the whistle. So that's why we need a Whistleblowers Act okay, to protect those who will tell on whoever has been caught, hiding away parts and parcels of the national patrimony.
And you think this government should probably compel or encourage other government officials and politicians to follow suit?
No, it's for those politicians or government officials to take notice of what has happened. Buhari wants to change the consciousness, the popular consciousness, in terms of expectations from public office holders. He wants to show leadership by example, the way I'm looking at him. And he's giving the example, declaring his assets, including the number of cows that he had, and mud houses and whatever. So people should fall in line. Because right now, he just has an advisory committee on what to do with corruption. But his image towers larger than life. And it has started impressing on the consciousness of many public officers. And I said on TV recently that when I went to Abuja 3 weeks ago, at the behest of the armed forces, my military escort refused to take a tip. After he processed me through at the airport, I just said, "Here is something for Coke." I said, "No, sir." I said he was doing his official duty. I was impressed because they now know the image of Buhari is such that it will put the fear of corruption, of even malfeasance in the hearts and minds of the general people. It's like when Murtala Muhammad was president. All manner of folklore was spun around him that before you know it, Murtala Muhammad might be riding his motorbike to catch you, when you are misbehaving, So this is a president who was behind the Operation War Against Indiscipline, all those acts of infelicity which visited political landscape. So now that he has the clear mandate with a promise of change, I think he has his work cut out for him.
Finally, what do you think just look at all his actions so far? What would you say you would have expected him to have done differently?
Well, the question of his cabinet, I would have expected him to use the language of the former president, hit the ground running. He has not really hit the ground. As I said, we are expecting him to hit the ground. It took him 3 months to even hit the ground. I didn't find too impressive. Then secondly, the policies. Nobody is sure. Look at the stock market. Look at the economy. People are hedging their bets because you can't just be making policy pronouncements and allowing civil servants to be dictating policy and representing political heads of their various ministries, departments, and agencies. Now, it's a little bit counterproductive, if not even dysfunctional. So those are the little items. And the third, of course, is kitchen cabinet. I think it could have been more inclusive by bringing people outside of his immediate political culture to really underscore the fact that he wears and carries a pan-Nigerian mandate. He should not be seen as a northern irredentist or hegemonist. Because the fault lines, ethnic, religious, and otherwise in Nigeria are clearly visible. And the fuse for social conflagration in Nigeria is so short. So you must try to avoid anything that will give the impression that he's the king of the north, as he was characterized recently, or that he doesn't have enough men and women that he can trust or work with outside of his immediate cultural environment. I think those are the few lapses. But then I know there are no angels anywhere. Buhari, warts and all, is much more to be preferred to 8 years of stasis or even 16 years of motion without movement. So I think it's a welcome respite to Nigerians who are yearning for change in their lives, yearning for change in their circumstances, and change in the fortunes of the Nigerian polity.
We will take another break here, and when we come back, we would be looking at the economy. What next for Nigeria with its expulsion from the JP Morgan Government Bond Index for emerging markets? Every day, every hour, and every minute, news break in Nigeria. Things happen so fast, it's most times difficult to track and comprehend them. But that's what we do right here on DEJI360. 2015, would you want to come back again?
It's like asking Jesus Christ if he knew he was going to die, will you want to come back as the savior of the world again?
We do not just help you track the stories, we break them down, explore all the angles, analyze the issues so that you can fully comprehend the stories and use them to make the right decisions.